to all of you here. As I shared with this morning's early service, what a powerful way of humbling yourself to be asked to develop a message for your friends in your congregation. I would encourage everyone to start. You never know when somebody's going to call you and say, I need you to be prepared to present something for us this week. But pick a topic, and good luck with that. There are a lot of topics. I'm thankful that that topic was chosen for me this week, so I hope it resonates with you. What does Christmas mean for our New Year's resolutions? Many of you participated in our Advent study for the past 5 weeks and had an opportunity to develop your own understanding from this lesson, or perhaps reflected on a previous understanding of what Advent means to you. As we have learned in our study, Advent matters to our faith because it is what God has done, what God is doing, and what God is about to do. The Christian calendar is based on the life and ministry of Jesus. Advent is uniquely the one part of the story that we're still waiting on to happen, while also celebrating what Jesus has already done. Advent has the power to inform and shape who we are for the future more than any other season in the church. It is during this period that we should reflect on what our next year needs to look like. So each year we individually have an opportunity to reflect on the past year and create our own New Year's resolution. Everybody good about doing that? Well, you might create them. A resolution, as we know, is defined as a firm decision to do something or not to do something. Some of us will come to the same conclusion and decide that my New Year resolution is going to be to lose 10 or 20 pounds. Others will decide to commit to communicating better with a spouse or a family member, like a brother or sister, or I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to save more money. I'm going to spend more quality time with my family or grandchildren. I'm going to travel more and see the world. I'm going to focus on another promotion at work. Most of us have been through this process before with limited results. Amen? I know that each year I create a short list in my own head, which I know I will conveniently forget, but I have them ready just in case my wife asks me. I'm kidding, but sometimes I'm better off if I have something to share. Seriously, though, doesn't our human condition allow us all to feel like we should be powerful enough or smart enough or dedicated enough to establish a resolution we can accomplish? Our human condition is exactly why we're seldom able to complete a resolution. So I researched the topic. One of the reasons I don't get up here often is because I get so darn emotional, I tell you. So bear with me through that. So I researched New Year's resolutions, and every reference states that most fail within a few weeks. In fact, before February 14th on Valentine's Day. They're simply unsustainable and highly restrictive and lead almost everyone to break their resolutions. Most people make the same resolution each year because they never completed the one they created last year. I'm going to pick up again where I couldn't complete. According to the experts, the only way to break this cycle is to make resolutions that can not only improve your health, but also be followed for the rest of your life. So the experts have a long list of suggestions for us all. Eat more whole foods, sit less, move more, cut back on sweetened beverages, get more quality sleep, find a physical activity that you enjoy, take more time and practice self-care, cook more meals at home, spend more time outside, limit screen time, try meditating. The bottom line is, as I read through this list, it looks exactly like the list that was designed to improve my own physical emotion and physical abilities, but to me it looks exactly like the list of resolutions that I was seldom able to accomplish anyway. So more of the same. If we compare our focus and resolutions versus the need to shift our focus to a new perspective, wouldn't it be great if we could accomplish something with the New Year's resolution? I recently completed a week-long, here we go again, expedition of whitewater rafting through the Grand Canyon. I've shared parts of this story with some of you. I'd never seen the Grand Canyon. It was on my bucket list. I knew that I wanted to see it. A couple of years ago, my nephew, who's a crazy outdoors fanatic, said, "Hey, Uncle Johnny, how about you and I go down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon?" And I said, "Sure, what the heck?" I had no idea what I was about to enlist in. So, at that moment, I hadn't given any thought to what that trip would be like, so I did what all of us would do. I watched a couple of documentaries that were all about advertising for the Grand Canyon, so you can imagine they didn't really contain anything of value that would save your life. It was all about the good time you were going to have. And then I read a book, and that book helped me understand the number of items that I needed to purchase to be able to live while transitioning through the Grand Canyon. So I trained. In my profession, I'm really supposed to be able to be good at observations and evaluating how to keep people safe. So I thought, after all my evaluating and book reading and observing of the documentaries, that my two biggest obstacles were going to be heat stress and fatigue. I've got to get in shape, and I have to be able to endure 115 to 120 degree heat. Now, most of you realize what this past summer was, right, where we had multiple days well over 100 degrees. So 8 weeks ahead of time, I started donning a pack and one of those funky hats and heading out the door before 4 o'clock in the afternoon and started running uphill and walking downhill, initially for 30 minutes and then an hour and then an hour and a half away from home, and then try to beat my time back home. Preparing for a trek after 7 days in the Grand Canyon that I had to walk out 10.8 miles up an incline of 500 feet per mile. So I had this all calculated out in my head. If I can endure the heat and I'm in good enough shape, then I got this. Numerous people had told me they did it. Of course, they were 20. Most of you know I'm in excess of 50. But nonetheless, I took it on. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to make God laugh, just tell him your plans? That's exactly where this kind of headed. So relying on myself and my own confidence, I purchased all of the supplies that I knew I was going to need. Top-of-the-line hiking shoes, socks, sunscreen. Did you know there's hundreds of different types of socks you can buy, but I had to have the right ones for what I was doing. Sunscreen, hat, backpacking gear, sleeping bag, walking stick, water bottle, snacks, a pillow, tent, rain gear, headlamp. The day had finally come after I owned all this gear. We're ready to head to the Grand Canyon. This had been almost a 2 years preparation. 16 of us are going to go down the Grand Canyon together. Very few of us knew each other. We had met numerous times online in order to plan this. So here we are on this day, almost to the Kansas City airport, where we are going to fly to Dallas and then to Flagstaff, Arizona, where we will begin our adventure. We are close to the airport when all of a sudden all of our phones started going off, and we looked and they have canceled our flights. Okay. Surely, so we went to one of our participants' homes in Kansas City and started making calls, and we rerouted our flights. So a couple hours later, we get in a plane in Kansas City and we head to Chicago. and then to Phoenix, which is 4.5 hours away from Flagstaff. We arrive at midnight, only to find that the rental car agency had closed and we had no transportation available. We're standing in the parking lot where it's 102 degrees and holding all of this gear that a 16-passenger van would barely hold. And 6 of us stood there until we got the van rented. We finally got someone there. We drove 4.5 hours to Flagstaff, where the rest of our party was in a VRBO waiting for us. They got a good night's rest. I was in bed for an hour and a half when they shook us out and said, "Let's go." So the fatigue had already started. I need to find my place here again. I don't want to miss any of this. So that day, before we met our outfitter that morning and we loaded our gear, all of it. It took 2 trucks and a van with a trailer for all 16 of us. Each of the 5 rafts weighed 3,000 pounds for 16 days of gear. So it began that morning. We drove 2 hours. We get to the river, and the sight was already amazing. Some of the other things that we had to face, the water temperature is coming out of the bottom of the dam. It's 43 degrees. That was pleasant because it was 115 degree where we were unloading our gear, and you could cool off if you could stand to walk in the water. It's the first time I've been in both extremes that close together. So we get in our boat. Took a couple hours to load everything. We literally went downstream 100 yards, and they made us unpack the boats. We had to show them that we could set up the food preparation and the tents, and then we had to listen to the ranger speech. The last thing the ranger told us was 90% of the bats in the Grand Canyon have rabies. Don't sleep uncovered. Okay, note to self. So we stayed there that night, and then we got in, and then the water was pristine and crystal clear. 1 mile downstream, it turned into chocolate milk. Each night, frequent rain showers, wind-blown sand filled our tent, hatching insects that were an incredible nuisance, camping on hot sand till 3 or 4 in the morning before you could become anywhere close to comfortable, trips to the bathroom in the dark, wondering about the scorpions or the rattlesnakes, anxious moments anticipating these rapids that seemed to scare even the professional oarsmen on our boat. By day 6, my son and I believed that we had 12 to 14 hours of sleep. The final night of camping we had together, we were excited about halfway through the trip. We were walking out, 4 of us, and 4 new campers were joining the team. So we got to that point, and again, less than 2 hours of sleep because of lightning strikes and wind and rain. Now it's 4:45 in the morning, and we pack our gear for the final day. And before we loaded into our raft, we held hands and we prayed. It was memorable. I can remember appreciating how this prayer calmed me. So 4 of us got on the boat, traveled down to Bright Angel Trail a couple of additional miles in the dark, where we were about ready to ascend 10.8 miles in the heat of the day. So this was the part I'd trained for that I thought I was ready for. As we eased down the trail for that one last stretch, I began thinking, I'm already so exhausted. I prayed again and just had another amazing sense of calm come over me. I suddenly felt capable and confident. I think that was the adrenaline kicking in, but prayer was potent at that point. So we began our ascent, all 4 of us, in unseasonably cool temperatures. which I think God already had his hand in. So instead of 90 degrees projected to start a mile below the surface, we were at 78 degrees, and we all thought, man, let's hustle while it's cool. 3 miles into the hike, everything changed when one of our party became ill, violently ill. He'd kind of overdosed on electrolytes, left him so weak and unable to move anywhere up the trail. So our focus became taking care of him. We weren't going to leave him, but what could we do? We didn't have everything that we needed to make him comfortable and get him back to a condition where he could walk. So we chose a couple of the more fit individuals. My son Trent, I said, Trent, can you make it out of here? He said, oh, let me go. He was so tired of sitting there and waiting. So we handed him the sick individual's pack, and him and one other guy took off on the mission of finding a ranger, paramedic, who could come down and help us. Kind of the moral of the story is, for the next 9 hours, we battled with making decisions for our guy who had gotten ill. 9 hours later, we made it near the top of the canyon. As I was nearing the top of the canyon, I can remember each step was challenging, and every joint in my body was just throbbing. I could see when we got close to the top, there was my wife. Some of you have heard me say this before. She located me for a celebration hug. Man, what an embrace. I wept, which isn't that big a deal because I'm doing it now. I wept for a couple of minutes, but I was so thankful for the experience and the fact that we all made it out together. You might ask, what does this story have to offer us? No matter what journey you're preparing for, if you rely on your own resolve, you may fail and regret not completing the challenge like most New Year's resolutions. If you can change your focus and use a different perspective, a successful outcome is so much more possible and rewarding. Excuse me. Gosh. We rescued our friend, a guy who we never met before that week. So, what would our New Year's resolutions look like if we used a different focus? What if we developed a new perspective? Let's not focus on ourselves this year and have another example of failed attempts to improve our physical and emotional health, but focus on attributes that Christ desires. Let's focus on our relationships, our faith journey, our loyalty, and our commitments. From my experience, when I focus on relationships, my physical and emotional needs take care of themselves. When my family is happy, my coworkers are happy, my friends are happy, my neighbors are happy, and the congregation is happy. It's all because we're focused on relationships. So for us, to be like Christ is not a resolution, but a reorientation. Resolutions are about working harder and doing more, but that's like trying to improve on our old nature. In some ways, it's a marketing tool that our society uses for a weight loss program or fitness memberships or other ways to benefit business. Again, resolutions are seldom able to improve our physical and emotional health. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. So how do we begin this new challenge of forgetting resolutions and begin reorienting our attitudes? Reorientation is one's attitude of settling a way of thinking. It's settling into a new nature. It's how we really learn to respond to the world's situations. It's an attitude that only God can give us when we're moved by His Spirit. Ephesians 4:22 through 24 says, "Put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness." On this New Year's Eve, let's continue considering revising our attitudes instead of just making some goals. Take inventory and see what Christ has done, where Christ has been through this last year of your life. Think back to all you've done and seen this past year. Recall the year in detail. Rejoice whenever you see blessings. Repent and confess whatever sinful patterns and attitudes you see. Reboot and take the time to prayerfully consider how you can be more like Jesus in this new year. What a perfect time to use Advent for the new beginning. Instead of us using our own resolutions for self-improvement, for ambitions of who we want to be or what's important to us or what we want to accomplish, let's discuss our own attitudes instead of our ambitions. We need the attitude of Christ. Year after year, we remain in the cycle of pitifully successful resolutions. We disappoint ourselves. So this year, right here today, let's take inventory of what our past years look like. Close your eyes with me. Think about the past year's pain, disappointment, uncertainty, disease, war, fear, suffering, and death. Keep your eyes closed. Now, let's imagine how our resolutions could look if we were more focused on a Christ-like attitude instead of our own ambition. Take a deep breath. Gently assume a tender smile on your face and listen. My prayer for you is that you will seek a resolution of a New Year's attitude that truly makes you more whole, more understanding, more sincerity, more compassion, more forgiveness, more patience, more kindness, more generosity, more love. May the attitude you accept today remain with you through the coming year so that your true health comes from a heart full of the love of Christ. Amen.